Hey team, I've been getting some great questions from you all, and today's question was how to break a 45-minute 10K. I know athletes that are trying to run 44:59 or faster over this distance really are dealing with the same issues we all have to deal with, regardless what type of time goal we're going after, and that is pace sustainment. How can you slow down less than your competition? For athletes that are trying to run 44:59 or sub 45 minutes for 10 kilometers, you need to hold 4:30 for 10 straight kilometers or 7:14 per mile for 6.2 miles. And of course, many athletes can run sub 45-minute pace for 10K for maybe 5 kilometers or maybe even 8 kilometers of the race. But it really is, it comes down to where are you at the finish line. And so to run at this pace and to get comfortable doing it takes an immense amount of dedication and patience on your part as the athlete. Now, some of the workouts that I focused on when I was training for the 10K was running repeat miles on the track, repeat 1600s. Between 4 and 16, between 4 and 1600 meter reps on the track. And for the athlete that's trying to run a sub 45 minute 10K, I would focus on, at least in terms of your interval pace, focus on running those reps around 650 to 655 when you're first starting out and you're not really anaerobically fit, you're not in phenomenal race shape, and then working your way down to the point where you can do those repetitions at around maybe 630 to 635 mile pace or faster. Of course, when you're training for a sub 45 minute 10K, you want to make sure that you're first building your aerobic base first, and when you're doing your track sessions, make sure that your pace is, be patient with yourself. Your pace is on those reps, whether you're doing 1600 meter reps, repeat 800s, they're not going to be as fast and as aggressive in the early stages of your buildup, and you want to make sure that you give yourself more time to recover between each reps. Okay, if you're doing 1600 meter reps, that might be between 3 and 4 minutes of recovery between each one of your repetitions. And then as you get very fit, when you're doing a 16-week block of training, those first, say, between 1 to 7 to 8 weeks of your buildup, you want to make sure you're giving yourself between 3 and 4 minutes of rest. And then in the second half of your buildup, I would work to get yourself to be able to do between 60 seconds to 90 seconds rest in between each one of your 1600 meter reps. Okay, the same goes if you're doing repeat 800s on the track. You might want to start off at threshold effort, running around 335 to 340 per rep for 800s on the track. And that's again when you're not very fit at all and you're just kind of trying to get your legs turning over to work toward getting, again, that 714 mile pace or 430 kilometer pace to feel easier for you. Okay, if you're doing once you get in much better shape anaerobically, then you want to start working to get to a point where you can do your interval reps at interval effort at closer down toward 320 to 324 per rep. Okay, and again, with 800 meter reps, that might mean giving yourself 2 minutes rest at the beginning or 2 to 2.5 minutes of rest at the very beginning when you're not very fit. Again, slower paces, more rest, and then as you get more anaerobically fit and you've done some races, you've done some time trials, then again, you want to speed up the intervals and you want to lessen the rest. There's not going to be any rest in between each one of your miles or kilometers in the race. So you want to teach your body to clear lactic acid more effectively, build your anaerobic and aerobic capability, and to be able to clear that lactic acid more effectively in the race so that you can sustain your race pace for a longer period of time. Okay, when you're down toward, you're working in your speed, and again, that's in the last quarter of a buildup. You start working on your taper, your repetitions should be much more aggressive, and your rest should be very minimal. You want to make sure you're stressing the energy systems of your body so that, again, you improve your body's lactate tolerance. You're obviously getting much fitter. Your heart rate is much lower at a faster heart rate or at a faster speed when you're doing your tempo runs, and it's not as difficult for your heart to pump the blood as it was when you first started off. Okay, your pace is much slower when you're doing tempo runs, or even when you're doing your easy runs. Your pace is naturally going to be much slower when you're out of shape. and your heart rate's going to be higher versus when you're in great shape, when your speed and pace during tempo runs, during track sessions are much faster, and your heart rate is much lower. So again, you definitely want to be continuing to work on your leg development, your speed development to break a sub 45 minute 10K. Hill repetitions, I recommend doing that every other week. That might mean doing anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 200-meter repetitions up a hill, all out. Okay, that, when you're first starting off, that will be walking down for recovery. When you're in great shape, again, minimize the amount of rest you're giving yourself. Okay, you want to stress the body's energy systems, but you want to make sure that you're also paying attention to your recovery. Okay, so when you get in great shape and you're several weeks into a build-up, training for a sub 45 minute 10K, then you're doing repeat 200s on up a sharp hill. Focus on pumping your arms, lifting your knees, really focusing on form, staying as relaxed as you can, even at submaximal and maximal efforts. But also, when you're in much better shape, jog very lightly on the way down instead of walking on the way down. Okay, so again, we want to make sure that we're paying attention to our aerobic base first. Okay, building that easy, relaxed base mileage. Also incorporating strides, 4 to 6 100-meter strides. And again, that's in your aerobic base building phase. Okay, if you're starting a 16-week block of training, or if you're training, in most cases, 4 months is plenty of time to train for a 10K. I recommend 20 to 24 weeks if you're training for, say, a 10-miler, a half marathon, or a marathon event. Okay, so in that 16-week block of training, you want to first focus on the aerobic base, then start working in your specific training where you're training closer to or at your anaerobic threshold, slightly slower than your race pace. And then once you start working in the speed part of your training buildup, then you really want to start working on your leg speed, really training at paces significantly faster than goal race pace, in this case 7:14 mile pace or 4:30 per kilometer pace. Okay, and then focus on that 10-day taper that I talk about. Okay, even with a 10K, you can recover much faster between workouts and races versus if you're training for a half marathon or a marathon. So a 10K, you don't necessarily need to have a 10-day taper. That might mean just running easy or jogging about 3 days prior to the 10K. But that's if you're doing a few time trial 10Ks or maybe 5K to 5 mile time trials or races during your buildup. Then you just do a few easy miles leading into those particular races, and focus on a 10-day taper when you're focusing on that specific goal race that you have at the end of your training buildup. If you're following a training plan, okay, that's kind of really the philosophy that I have with the training plans on RunDreamAchieve.com. We do focus on a 10-day taper at the very end, but there are significant workouts that are going to really test you to the limits if you're trying to break a sub 45 minute 10K. So I hope this video is helpful in terms of thinking about some of the things of how to break a 45 minute 10K. Again, it's holding 7:14 mile pace for 6.2 miles or 4:30 kilometer pace for 10 kilometers straight. So again, be cognizant of running a negative split. Do not go too aggressive in the first half of your race and try to race this 10K in the first 5K and be forced to drastically have to slow down in the second half. Be smart. Don't get too hyped up in the first half. Again, you can go out practically all out the first 200 meters and not build up any lactic acid. So it is important to get out in the race and then settle into your pace and run your race. So if you have any other questions, leave me a comment below. Check out the resources below RunDreamAchieve.com's YouTube channel, all of my videos, as well as on RunDreamAchieve.com. There are definitely resources there to help you significantly increase your capability to hold a faster pace for a longer period of time and get that new personal best you're looking for. So I wish you all the best, and I will talk to you guys and gals all in the next video.